We are now going to write the program for Practical 2, Exercise 1. And it's a rather nonsensical program that is just a bit of fun. So we're going to use numeric up-down controls to get X and Y coordinate, and then we're going to use those values to move the button that we click on to a different location. So every time we click on the button, it will move to the location specified by the two values in the left and top numeric up-down controls. So you will learn a few new types of controls, new properties, and a new event handler as well. So let's write the program. First, we're going to change the form. We'll change its name to FRM moving button. Then we'll change its text property to moving button. So now we're going to change two numeric up-down controls on the form. So this is similar to a text box, but the data type of this input box is a number, not a string. And it provides you with little arrows. When you run the program, you can move the value up and down using the arrows. So I'm just going to move them down a bit. So we also want to add two labels just to tell the user what is going to be entered in there. So that will be the left value, and that will be the top value. And then we want the button, so it can start anywhere on the form. So, and we put the text move on the button, and we call it btn move. Okay, so let's fix the size of the form. Just click on the form again to make it the active property of the active control. Okay, then change its size. Find the size property and just make sure that its size is 300 by 300. I think this is the default value, so yours should be 300 by 300. So let's just make sure that is the case. Okay, so when the user types in these values and clicks on the button is going to jump to that position where the value in the left numeric up-down becomes the left property value of the button, and the top value becomes the value of the top property. Now if we type in 600 into top, it means that the button will move sort of outside of the boundaries of the form, and then we can't click on it again because we won't be able to see it. So to prevent the button from moving outside of the form, we are going to change the maximum properties of these two numeric up-downs. So if you click on one of them, and you can see there's a minimum, which we leave at 0, and then we find the maximum, and we change that to just to be safe, we make it 250. So the biggest value that the left and the top properties can have should be 250. And because the form is 300 by 300, that means the button will remain within the form's boundaries. Okay, so I've made both maximum properties of the numeric up-downs 250s. I'll leave the minimum property at 0, and I made sure that the form is 300 by 300. So we can now save the program. Okay, the next step is now to write the event handler for the move button. So when the user clicks on move, we assume that they have changed the left and top properties. All we have to do then is to take those values and put them in the button's left and top properties. So let's do that. So I double click to open the event handler there. Just going to make the code slightly bigger. First going to put in all my comments just so that I can structure my program or my event handler. Declare variables for left and top, and then I'm going to convert. I misspelled that. Convert the input values to integer, and then I am going to assign the input values to left and top properties of button. Right, so I'm going to store the left and top values into integers, and I'm going to just call them left value and top value. So note, if we have two variables of the same type, we can declare them in one line. So we can just say integer left value comma top value. Okay, so those are the variables that I'll use. Now I can assign to left value the numeric up down. Ooh, did I rename the numeric up downs? I don't think so. No, so I must still rename them, so I call them numeric up down. I'm just going to call it X, and that one I'm going to call numeric up down Y, so NUD for numeric up down. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So the left value must get the value inside numeric up down X. Okay, but so you can see now there's a problem. It says cannot implicitly convert type numeric up down to int. So value still cannot implicitly convert type decimal to int. So what this tells us that the value property of a numeric up down is actually a decimal value. So we have to convert this decimal value, convert to int32 in order to store it in left value. Now we have to do the same, convert dot. Now we do the same for right value is equal to convert to int32 numeric up down Y value. Oh my goodness, this should be top value. Okay, so we've declared our variables, we've assigned the values provided by the user to those variables. Now we can use that to change the position of the button. So the button's name was button move, so we're going to change its left property to left value. So we're now going to do the same for the top value. So it's button move dot top is equal to top value. Right. So I'm going to save my program and then I'm going to run it just to see if this works. Okay, so let's just type in 150 and there we type 200 and I click on move and you can see the button moves. If I type 600 over there, you can see it changes it to the maximum of 250 and we can still see the button. Okay, so if I type 20, and I click on move, it moves it over there. So we've done the first part of the program, so we're moving the button around. The second part of the program is that we also want to change the size of the button every time it moves. So it seems obvious that we have to create, in the click event of the move button, add statements to change the size. But we're not going to do it that way, because what if the user does not change the values in the left and top numeric up-downs and then clicks on move? Then the button will stay where it is, but it will still get bigger. We only want the button to change size when it moves. Okay, so how do we do that? Instead of doing this in the click event of the move button, we're going to create another event handler for the move button, and that is the location changed event. That event handler will only be triggered if the button moves position. So the user will click and the button will move, and that move will trigger the location changed event, and in that event handler we will then make the button bigger. Right, so we first have to stop running our program there, and then we go back to the form. To create the location changed event handler for the move button, we select the move button on the form, and then we go to the properties window and we click on the lightning bolt there, and then you can search for the location changed event handler. Here it is, and double click on that. Okay, so what should happen in this event handler? The button should be made bigger, so its width and height properties should change. And what we're going to do, we're going to add 10 pixels to the current value of the width and the current value of the height. And how we do that, let me just put in a comment. Change width and height of button. Okay, so now we say button move width is equal to, and what we now want to do is to add 10 to the current width. So we're going to say button move width plus 10. Okay, so in this assignment statement we have button move width plus 10 on the right hand side. So 10 will be added to the current width, and that new value will be then assigned to the property width. And we do the same with button move height. We say add 10 to the current height of the button. Okay. I'm going to save the program and run it. Okay. Currently the left and top properties are 0. So if I click on move, it moves it to that position 0, 0. Okay. And it also changed the size. If I leave the values at 0, 0 and I click again, it just stays where it is and it doesn't change size. If I now change it to 100, 100, yeah, and I click on the button, it moves and it increases in size. If I just click on it now again, it just remains the same size. So I can do that again. Okay. You see gradually the button changes size. So here we have a problem now. We can only change the top. That is the complete program. there's a short way to write an assignment statement like this. So instead of saying button move width is equal to button move width plus 10, we can just say plus equal 10 and plus equal 10. So this does exactly the same. So this statement will add 10 to the current value on the left hand side.